Because Alias does not have an copy or clone and move and scale tool, that would affect also the construction history. So think about, maybe I'm selecting all these surfaces and curves and clone them to a different space in my scene and rotate it and scale it. But essentially, those are just a clone of my original object. And because Alias does not have such a tool, to continue the tutorial like what Alias is suggesting, we really, in this case, have to copy and paste and make hard copies of those three surfaces. Unfortunately, that means we have to sacrifice the ability to use the construction history. So to prevent further work afterwards, for example, in the stage, it's really important that you realize, for example, the fillet is correct. So not that once you've finished building the part on the right, then you realize, well, I have to change this fillet, because then you would have to redo everything for the vacuum bag and the cable part. So let's copy this geometry and then I create a new layer and let's paste. And when you paste something in, the object or the objects are still selected, and then I go to this layer and say assign. Maybe I call this one bag and cable. Let's see if this really is having those parts. Yes, it does. Good. And then we can create our trim curve. And instead of using a CV curve, I'm going to use a P curve. Essentially, both curves create, or both tools create the same. However, the EP curve has one advantage. If I would like to make a straight line, I can just click once, click twice, and you see there is a U and a blue X, which means there are 4 control vertices. And if I go with the CV curve, I have to click once, second, third, and fourth. And you see it's a lot more challenging to make a straight line when you have to click 4 times, in contrast to you click just twice. So that's, for example, one of the advantages of the P curve. If you need to draw a straight curve, which is not going along the Z or the X axis or Y, but is at an angle. Then I'm going to place my trim curve, maybe something like this. And then it's time to trim. I'm not going to make any intersection, because if we open the trim command tool, there is an ability to turn on 3D trimming. And basically what this means is I can now select, for example, this geometry, so the surfaces, and then the command line, for example, asks you to select a trim curve. So I click on this trim curve, and you see immediately that there is now a blue line. The blue line is basically this line projected onto my model. So this is basically the same like the intersect. It's creating now the trim curve on the surface. And I am in the left view, so I'm in orthographic view, and I'm using the view as my projection direction. So currently, technically speaking, we are taking a look at this object along the y-axis. You see Z is up and X goes to the right. And then I can click on this surface and this and this and say discard. And that's, for example, then how you can use the trim tool together in conjunction with a trim curve and while trimming interactively project it onto your object.